Welcome back to ALECA Talks, the podcast for leaders shaping a sustainable future. I'm your host, Serge, aka the boring ESG guy, if you want to follow me on social media. Today we're heading to Sydney to speak with someone who sits at the front line of business resilience, recovery, and transformation. Our guest, Mr. Liam Bailey, is a partner at O'Brien Palmer Insolvency and Business Recovery, a boutique firm known for its deep technical expertise, multidisciplinary approach, and decades of experience navigating both personal and corporate insolvency. We are going to hear about how Liam's career spans law, accounting, restructuring, and advisory work, giving him a uniquely grounded perspective with SMEs. Welcome to ALECA Talks, Liam.
Hi, Serge. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. I think today's conversation will explore your professional journey, what it means to engage O'Brien Palmer, how technology, we just talked about technology this morning, is reshaping the insolvency profession, the evolving kind of SME landscape, the challenges of SMEs today, maybe a little bit about sustainability and ESG. All right. Let's get started. I think to begin, I want to ground our listeners a little bit. We've had a few conversations, but I want the listeners to get to know you, how you built your career and what shaped your path into insolvency. You originally studied law and then
Yeah.
moved into accounting and eventually insolvency. What drew you into this profession and what clicked for you, I guess?
So, that's right. I was going to be a lawyer. I was young and idealistic and thought I was going to be a international environmental lawyer.
Okay.
Um, However, I finished my law degree, and I wasn't particularly enjoying the experience working in large firms as a lawyer. And so I quit. And I was actually looking for work in a small law firm. Someone had told me that that might be more suitable to my personality. And whilst I was looking for jobs, a friend of mine said that he had a contact that had just started an insolvency firm, and maybe I might like to do some work with them for a while. And I thought, well, that'll pay better and be more interesting than pulling beers and working in pubs. So I went for the interview, got the job as a junior insolvency analyst, and I found something that I really, really loved. And here I am 18 and a half years later, still doing it.
Well done. Well done. So that introduction and just you hadn't really thought about it. I'm happy to hear the international law on environmental lawyer. That was a cool profession, very in line with our sustainability journey. When you entered the insolvency field, what did it look like 18 odd years ago?
Yeah, look, so back then, I think insolvency administration was a lot more hands-on. We used to go out and literally close the doors on businesses and terminate staff. We spent a lot of time seizing assets and putting them up for sale, collecting debtors. That was a lot of what we did. But the practice of SME insolvency these days has changed a lot, in that a lot of assets will either be not commercial to pursue and collect for sale these days. And a lot of assets will be subject to securities obtained under finance, which means they fall outside the scope of a liquidated usually. So a lot more insolvency work is done behind desks these days than it used to be.
I see. Like what we just discussed about even how Brian Palmer today, the firm is changing, and you just mentioned you went you developed a new system. Wanted to tell us what you put in place today at O'Brien Palmer.
Yeah, so until recently, O'Brien Palmer is a small business with less than 30 staff. So a lot of the experience that I have in helping SMEs either turn their businesses around or or bring them to an orderly conclusion is a very similar experience to my lived daily experience in running the business of O'Brien Palmer. Until recently, we had cobbled together a number of different computer systems, utilizing technology that was cost and appropriate for the time. And we have recently had a significant systems upgrade for the entire firm of O'Brien Palmer. So we have implementing and pushing all of our systems onto the cloud so that we can work from anywhere. And we've implemented a new practice management software to deal with all of the matters that we're working on, which is comprehensive from start to finish of an appointment, specifically designed for what we do. It's been fantastic in that the direct licensing costs of all the various programs that we were using have been more than halved. And the efficiency dividends in that are expected to be huge for our business. So that's a brilliant way that we're looking at making our business model more sustainable in a challenging environment. And it's not without its challenges. Certainly, we were looking at some of those this morning. Everything's fantastic in the cloud until you can't access the cloud. But overall, everyone's getting on board and recognizing the potential of this system and the benefits that it's bringing to the table. So it's been a really interesting time internally here at O'Brien Palmer.
Yeah, I can imagine. Congrats on setting up a brand new system. You mentioned in the past when we met, insolvency consulting is very multidisciplinary. You've got legal, financial, operational, tax. Is
Yeah.
your team obviously multidisciplinary and the softwares apparently are multidisciplinary as well? Can you tell us what your team, the strength of your team in that respect?
So insolvency in Australia is traditionally considered an accounting discipline or a subset of accounting. And the people that have worked in it have all been traditionally accountants, which is quite an interesting because we are looking at accounts to work out what a company has done or a business has done and what its potential is. Modern insolvency accounting is so much more than that. It is so much law these days, and there's a lot of laws and regulations around it, lots of case law that prescribes how we operate. We exist in the framework of codes of professional practice. There's a lot of law that prescribes everything that we do. But we're also trading businesses. We're conducting investigations. We're pursuing litigation. And in many respects, we're actually dealing with the human cost of financial stress to business. So the old model of male accountants staffing insolvency offices has gone out the window, and we have embraced a diversity of talent in our offices, but also a diversity in experience and education. We've got people here that are working that have got IT degrees, marketing degrees. There's one guy that's working here at the moment that started out as an industrial chemist and found transferable skills that have become in handy for us. So as the practice and the business and the requirements of it sort of diversify, we have to diversify who we've got working for us, so we've got that pool of talent.
Wow. Yeah, no, you've managed to attract and obviously retain, motivate your team. Well, how do you hire? How do you hire for your positions? You've said you have up to 30 individuals, professionals. How do you hire?
Well, like all businesses, the business has grown and we've slowly added to the pool. We've sometimes brought in a team of staff when we had a new partner join the firm. Otherwise, we've used recruiters from time to time, or people will contact us looking for opportunities. I like to motivate my staff to refer and recommend good people to the business by offering them an incentive if they refer potential recruits that stay with the firm. Because that way, good people know good people and attract good people. I think that's a great way of looking at it. But instead, we look at, a broader subset of experience and education, and think about how can those skills be transferred into the insolvency administration context. as opposed to just looking for the same people from the same educational institutions and courses, and specifically looking only for people who have worked in insolvency, because they're not always there, even if you were so inclined. But you're missing out a huge pool of really amazing people if you're only looking for, you know, people who graduated from certain institutions with a Bachelor of Accounting.
Yeah, agreed. Some companies only hire from certain universities. That's where they went to uni, so that's where they hire. No, I'm happy to hear that you're able to attract and retain good people. How about on your own leadership style and mentoring style? How do you how do you approach that with your younger staff, I guess? Are you a hands-on mentor?
Yes, I am. So I had the opportunity of a fantastic business mentor, a man by the name of Chris Palmer, who's the Palmer of O'Brien Palmer. When I first came to O'Brien Palmer 13 years ago, he worked intensely closely with me to develop the skills that I had picked up at previous firms, but really honed and perfected by working with Chris very closely. And I try to take that hands-on approach with all of our staff here. The benefit of what I got from Chris, hopefully I'm passing that on. But interestingly, and this is something that everyone will experience in a business, they start up a business because they're good at a particular craft or skill set. And that doesn't necessarily translate straight away into being a good manager in that area. And so in that regard here, about 2 years ago, O'Brien Palmer engaged the services of a leadership and business coach, so that we could look at the way our leaders in our office were operating, and really create a broad leadership team across the whole of the firm, which has been really successful in helping create more people to be able to take the tasks that are growing our business, training our staff, and the way that we engage with our staff as well, so that we're not just repeating the same ways of doing things from the past that might not be effective. One of the things that came out of that is that we've got a pool of talent in the junior levels of our business. And for them, the working from home revolution isn't such a fantastic thing, where they might still be living at home or they might be living in shared houses. Their home environments are not ideal for the work that we're doing, or maybe sometimes for any work at all. So they're showing up here to the office every day because that's the most convenient and efficient way for them to be able to do their work. And then we said, well, we've got a bunch of juniors and we've got a bunch of partners, but we need to look at the in-between levels of our leadership team who are supposed to be around and available for training and mentoring staff, and providing the guidance to those staff on how to operate. And so as a firm, we sat down and had a conversation and decided that one of the things that we were going to prioritize actually was an active and vibrant working environment in the office where people can learn, and people are present. And that's the way that we've approached managing staff. And it's been particularly effective. If certain staff, they're set up that they can work from home on occasions when it's needed, but they focus and priority is to be here. There are other firms that are completely operating without office premises anymore, and that model works for them. But the one that we've decided to focus on, as driven by feedback from our staff, is we're here, we're working together, we enjoy working together, we're learning whilst working together, and that's how we're going to focus our particular strategy that works for us.
I like to hear that. It's a very collaborative solution, especially multidisciplinary. It's always a gray area. Every discipline brings a range of what could be done. And when you're dealing with different ranges, different disciplines, you have to communicate that. Sometimes it doesn't come out in black and white in an email or even on a call like this, the subtlety of each discipline. So that's great to hear.
What works for an individual isn't necessarily going to be comprehensive for a firm. So, assuming that certain people will just work from home predominantly, might work for the individual, but it doesn't work when you pull a team of staff to pull an integral person out who just doesn't work on the same model as everybody else. So it's about what's going to work for the business as a whole, and then about making sure that we've got the people who want to be part of a strategy that we've adopted collectively. And so if you want to be able to be a person that manages your workflow around working from home, there's so many businesses that have that model in place that you can work. We are prioritizing finding people who like the idea of being in an office, and that works for us and it works for the people that we're hiring. So that idea of a strategy works for making sure that the model works here sustainably and effectively and efficiently.
Yeah, I agree. The sustainability aspect of having your staff mentored and rising up through the ranks. You mentioned your former partner Palmer from O'Brien and Palmer. When you think of succession planning, this is a very important key. You've got lots of people starting, but then after 5, 6 years, there's got to be a succession plan, So I can imagine you have a great succession plan in place and a vision for all your staff.
Yeah, that's right. Because look, I was the succession plan for Chris Palmer. I've brought new partners in that are part of my plan to grow the firm. I'm not looking at succession for myself anytime soon, but I need to make sure that I've got staff coming through that want to be here, that want to grow and develop. Unfortunately, the reality of small business is that sometimes people need to move on to new businesses if they want to be able to grow, because there isn't an opportunity, there isn't a role available for them to take the next step in. And it's always hard because you're losing good people that you spent time working with and training and developing. Um, but we like to look at, as a firm of a group of alumni, effectively, O'Brien Palmer, who've gone out now to do other things, but stay in regular contact with us because of the relationships that we've built. But otherwise, making sure that we're giving the opportunities to our internal staff to grow and development, hopefully to be able to stay with us and keep working. And we've got 4 out of the odd 30 staff who have been with us for more than 10 years now,
Okay.
which is a fantastic achievement, I think, for a small business.
Yeah, no, that's valuable. There's value in that. And you are still a young man, Liam. So yeah, you got plenty of years ahead of you. Do you think that transcends into the clients then when you're working so collaboratively and you bring in a client into the fold? Do you think that style helps you communicate with your clients?
Yeah, look, the way insolvency operates in Australia, I know that insolvency systems all over the world are very different, but uh, we're talking about businesses that either that get restructured and turn around and go back out into the marketplace, hopefully to not need our help again, or we've wound up their affairs in such a way that they're not going to need our help again either, because they cease to exist at the end of the process. When we talk about clients, we talk about referrals. So 95%, or maybe a little bit less than that these days, of people that we work with are referred to us through their advisors, their accountants and their lawyers. Much like in a medical setting, as an analogy, you might go and see a GP first, and the GP will send you on to a specialist to deal with issues. So you go and see your accountant or your lawyer, and they'll send you to speak to us because there's a specific, or our experience is required. Those referral relationships are fantastic when we keep staff over a longer period of time, because we build up a lot of trust with those referrers. And those referrers then have faith that they can send their clients to us and know that they'll be well treated. And they know that we have legal responsibilities and things that we can't shy away from as part of this process. But it's about making sure that the process is completed properly and professionally, efficiently, and in a way that is sensitive to the circumstances of those clients that are coming through, which I think we do very well. And I think that our referrers have stayed and have been kept referring firms or people to us over the whole time I've been here, because of our commitment to those things, but the longevity of the people that they're dealing with as well.
I agree. Referrals are always the best for getting new clients, especially for a small to medium enterprise. So you need to massage, or you need to navigate. You need to continually build your referral network of accountants and an accountant that has 100 clients, because not everyone needs your service.
That's right.
However, we discussed, do small business owners contact you too late at times? We discussed
All too often.
Shifting Sands, Blockbuster, Kodak, Toys R Us. There's changes going to the cloud, AI, all these things, and failing to adapt. So when should a business reach out to get support from O'Brien Palmer?
So the earlier that potential solvency issues are identified, the better the outcome if you seek the advice early enough. Now, that can seem like quite a self-serving statement from a person who's running a business providing the work that we do. But it's as simple to think about as this. Businesses and companies and directors have resources available to them. That can be the goodwill of the stakeholders in the business, the employees, their customers, suppliers, but it's also they have resources available to them in terms of cash assets and liquidity, plant and equipment, credit ratings. All those things come into play when we're looking at a strategy to be able to turn around a business. The more resources you have, the more goodwill and support you get from the people who will support your business, the more options you have left as to what you can do. If you don't reach out to speak to someone like me until someone's filed an application in court to bring your company to a close, you've burned a lot of the goodwill from the people that you now need support from. They're angry that they were forced to go and incur legal costs to bring you to the table. During this time, you've not been paying a lot of debt, so usually you've got less cash available, and you might be on COD terms with your suppliers. So we're really at that point looking at it's much harder to save a business and turn it around because the resources it needs to implement a turnaround strategy are just not there, not available without a significant capital recapitalization. So, yeah, the earlier the better, but unfortunately that doesn't always occur that way.
Yes, I know, I'm quite familiar, but the goodwill and support of your shareholders, of your community, of your clients, you don't want to sour that relationship in any way. So be honest, be transparent. We talk a lot about sustainability reporting. It's a bit of your suit of armor. It reflects how transparent you are. And if you're having trouble, share that with your stakeholders early and engage them. So I very much like to hear that. Over the past 17 years, you've delivered a lot of restructuring, right? What would
Yes.
you say, if there is any, kind of a common thread lately amongst SMEs? What would it be?
Look, there's two main causes driving a lot of financial stress in the Australian market, and I can only assume that it is a common experience around the world in developed countries. Inflation. Inflation is driving significant costs on all businesses everywhere. It usually comes with a diminished capacity for your clients and customers to be able to spend, because the standard response to inflation is interest rates or a lack of wage growth. So there's less money to go into businesses, more money going out of business on expenses. Your margins are getting eaten down. And in Australia, we do have a fairly aggressive position at the moment in the collection and enforcement of business-related taxes. That is also putting a lot of stress on Australian small businesses. So business owners are getting squeezed on all sides, and it's inevitable that that's going to drive and has seen a really significant spike in financial difficulties and people needing the assistance of our profession for turnaround strategies, or sadly, just a major spike in businesses having to shut down.
That is sad to hear. Yes, SMEs are the backbone of any economy, and it's kind of the canary in the coal mine, because there are so many of them. Big companies, they tend to survive, but there's so few of them,
Yeah,
and you
that's
don't
right.
hear, or when you do hear about them, it's a big deal. But you don't hear about the guy next door or the SME just down the road, which had to put a close sign.
And
So
it's across so many sectors. Our building and construction sector at the moment is suffering very badly by the increases in costs, the increases in regulation and red tape that put expenses on businesses, slowdown in the availability of financial products and services. They're just getting wedged on all sides, but we're seeing it in hospitality, we're seeing it in retail, we're seeing it in transport, particularly as petrol prices around the world are spiking. That's putting a lot of stress on these businesses, and they're struggling to make any margins, or are going backwards.
yeah, that's the inflation. It's a double-edged sword. Your costs are higher as a business, so you need to charge more, but clients have less money and they
Yeah,
want so there's cost pressure to bring the costs down because clients don't have money anymore, but your costs are going up. So margins evaporate in a hurry.
they do.
I can appreciate that. Now, the cost pressure to reduce your costs, and even O'Brien Palmer is going through it, a bit of restructuring, bringing in different technology, organizing all your software. You know, the elephant in the room today, everyone wants to talk about it. AI, increasing AI for error, finding red flags, whatever you want to use AI for, to streamline, to bring down your costs. How is AI changing the insolvency business?
Yeah, look, there's a lot of hype and hysteria about AI, and it's certainly something that we're experiencing in our profession as well. There's all the warnings about relying upon it, but then there's all the warnings about not bringing it to the table and implementing it for automation and efficiency. I think anyone that doesn't look at the potential of AI as a tool, something that can help your business operate more efficiently, is closing their eyes to a lot of potential growth or efficiency in their business. But similarly, we've seen plenty of businesses that have relied upon it too much at the current stage, and it's caused them a lot of difficulties as well. So, look, we are looking at using AI for analyzing sets of accounts to produce reports that are useful for our investigations. I think we're utilizing AI where we can for the production of reports and correspondence to stakeholders. But very much at the idea that it is a useful tool to people that have, much like, say, email was when it came along, but it can't yet do what we need it to do, and we still need to have well-trained, intelligent, and engaged insolvency analysts to do the work of our profession.
Good. I'm happy to hear that it's being incorporated, but with some wise decisions on where to use it. If we were to look at the next kind of level of humans and what they're needed for, humans are very good at analyzing ethics, transparency, sustainability, kind of navigating that environment and making plans, 5, 10-year plans. Do you think business ethics and transparency, sustainability reporting, ESG reporting, emissions auditing to a certain extent, do you think those are valuable commodities today? Just a general question.
Absolutely do. So, at every level, we have seen that businesses that have and operate in a structure where maybe the business owners and directors see themselves as a part of a business, not the whole of the business, and look at putting in place a structure around where they want their business to go, how they want it to exist within the communities that it serves, the regulatory framework, the HR framework. Sitting down and having a plan about these things is the first step to making sure that you can understand how your business survives and doesn't ride completely on your every decision. And that's the same at ESG. And unfortunately, as businesses are facing and approaching financial difficulties, it becomes one of the things that goes out the window. We stop thinking about it as if ESG is something that we can only really afford to think about in times when the business is profiting and doing really, really well. There's a lot of people who think that way about marketing as well. For example, the minute our business starts struggling, one of the things that we do is, and we see all the time, is a reduction in a marketing budget. But that is so self-serving because it actually then reduces your income moving forward. It's once we stop thinking about these things that are about how our business operates and growth, we create more problems for ourselves, which creates more stress, more financial difficulty, and it can become a bit of a downward spiral to the point where you're running out of options. So, yeah, I would be encouraging that people need to think about these things when they're setting up their businesses, when their businesses are operating well, and they need to not abandon them in times of stress because that framework is there to help when businesses are struggling.
Very good. That is great to hear. And yes, that sustainability vision and investing in marketing and branding and ESG report can be very much part of that. And everybody knows that if you cut your marketing budget, it doesn't affect you that quarter, really. It's self-serving. It reduces your costs that quarter, but then you have less clients in the next year. So you need to have that vision, I think, and you need to sit down as directors. And you mentioned directors being part of a structure, not being the company. They are part of a bigger entity. That's a good sign if you can put that down on paper. I want to
Yeah,
talk a
look,
little bit. Go ahead.
I was to say the business. The business that you as the business owner can step away from for a month, which you need to do for your own health, mental health, families. The whole point you running a business in the first place to, support your life is so that you're not always in the business. So the business needs to be able to survive the fact that you can step away from it. And to do that, there needs to be a framework that it operates in so that the people that you've got working for you know how to keep the business operational if you're not there. And they need to have that guidance of a vision statement, of a company ethos, of priorities, so that that can inform their decision making and the operations of the business when you're not always there to make that decision because of what's in your head.
That's that's good. I know we talked earlier. You plan to take some time off soon, and you're able to take that time off, aren't you?
Yes, I am. I am. So I was lucky enough earlier this year. My second daughter was born, and I was able to take 2.5 months away from the office as part of that. And we're also taking a couple of weeks off in a few weeks' time as well to be able to go away and enjoy some time as a family. So those structures that we've built at O'Brien Palmer, the automation that we're utilizing now, um, the vision statement for the leadership team to run on, they are all really integral parts of making sure that this business will survive when I walk away for a couple of weeks. You never get to walk away completely when you're a statutory officer like a registered liquidator or bankruptcy trustee, but you know, making sure the business continues to operate and with minimal input from me during those times is critical, and the business is much better for it.
Congratulations. Yes, so it seems like if you're an SME owner and you're able to take a month off or 2.5 months, that's very unusual. You've made it as a small business owner because it's an entity that runs, you've got the systems in place, and you're able to take some time off. So congratulations for that. I think you've made it as an SME owner. If you were to talk to a young Liam, 20 years ago, maybe talk to him today in today's environment, what would you tell a young professional starting either in law or in accounting or in the insolvency business in general, all the disciplines? What would you tell them as far as building a career that matters, a career that has purpose and is sustainable for the next 5, 10, 20 years?
Probably unsurprisingly, the human interactions, networks, and relationships are absolutely key. Uh, uh, we get trained in how to do what our jobs are. We understand what the law is. We learn the systems that our businesses put in place to make sure that all those things happen. That's something that you were trained in. That's something that you'll learn by doing the job. What makes you better at it is remembering that what drives our business is people. and the circumstances that they find themselves in. So I tell my junior staff now, when they go out to network, they don't need to sit around and tell these people what O'Brien Palmer does day to day, because every liquidator in town and every bankruptcy trustee in town has the same ability as a result of their ticket and utilizing the law that every other trustee and bankruptcy and liquidator has. So talk to them about why they should choose you. Talk to them about why O'Brien Palmer is a place that they would be happy to refer their clients to, because we treat people well, we do our work efficiently, we care about outcomes for people, and we care about the communities that we're serving and operating. And that will guide them to think of you when they have a job to refer to the firm. They'll be happy to refer those clients in. And by growing that network, you're growing your ability to grow through the firm as well, because professional services practices are all built on and progression in those businesses built on the leads that you're generating, the business that you're generating. And if you want to become more than just an insolvency accountant, but you want to be a partner, you need to be thinking about all the relationships and the people that you work with in a network. And you need to be able to help them as much as they can help you if you're going to survive.
That is a great piece of advice, building that network and being respected as a professional. It goes far, and you may not get dividends for the first few months, but then 5 years later, they're like, oh, we met that nice professional from, where was he working? O'Brien Palmer, that's always nice to hear. Well, Liam, it's been a very rich and insightful conversation. Let's kind of close it out. We were out of time. Thank you very much for your time today, Liam, and for sharing your experience and your kind of grounded view on how to build an SME. That's important, but also how to deal with SMEs that are struggling. And I think that gives you a very unique perspective. Thank you very much, Liam.
No, thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
All right. Clearly your work at O'Brien Palmer is quite important. And we support you. If there's anything we can do in the podcast or from the listeners themselves, we are more than happy to support you over your journey as well through the sustainability and ESG reporting. So thank you very much. Finally, to the listeners of ALECA Talks, hey, thank you very much. We appreciate your time as well. And until we meet again, continue being a leader for a sustainable future. Ciao for now.
Bye, guys.